Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to COASTER-net Update. We've got some breaking news out of Canada, where Canada's Wonderland has officially started their teaser campaign for the 2025 season. And they've been posting a whole bunch of interesting iconography, interesting phraseology, maybe. Jeff, you've been kind of checking this out, tracking this. So what do you have? What do we got here?
Well, they started with some little pictures that looked like kind of like a little cave drawing
Yeah, like
with
almost
two
like runes,
symbols.
right?
Yeah,
When
like I thought they were like Viking symbols or something, maybe like that
when
at first.
when I first saw them, I'm like, oh, this looks like Frozen 2, because Frozen 2 had all these like very distinct symbols in the very similar shapes. Not exactly the same. They're not the same at all, trust me. But they do harken back to one another for sure.
Yeah. So well, I feel like they're trying to use a similar kind of like a similar theme. Maybe that's why they look familiar, because one of those symbols is meant to signify fire, and the other one is meant to symbolize, like, I'm guessing water or maybe ice, but I think water.
Yeah, for sure. Because like you think about like the very basic elements and stuff. So you have the symbols, you have these runes, and that's kind of
Yeah.
like where they started. And then in like, is that the one that was on like the rock background almost?
Yeah, and each one of them kind of had like a little phrase that went with it. So
Yeah.
like first one was it's a new adventure, and then the second one was about legends, and the last one said beware. So I feel like that's kind of building from adventure to legend and then beware. So
Mhm.
I think that we're looking at maybe a throw ride here, with that kind of progression.
Well, absolutely. And we've already seen footers go up around the park. Pretty hefty footers, and not small footers, uh footers that are kind of like, and all of this stuff has been like centralized around the mountain. And we
Right.
already know that the mountain has a whole lot of rides. You got Wonder Mountain's Guardian, you've got Vortex, you've got the powered coaster. I forget the name, was it Thunder Run or something? I forget them all the time. Um, so you also have the big waterfall on the front. So there's a lot going on in this area. But we have begun to see markings and footers go up even in the middle of the midway too, which is kind of
Yeah.
interesting. That I just saw a picture online today of one of the midways, and there's like a skee ball game stand, and there's a footer literally right in the right in front of it. So they'll probably be taking that game out for next year. But
And
if you
some
look
of the
at
plazas too, even the paver plazas, they've got footers and then they've got them covered up.
so definitely something big, and I'm thinking not flat ride at this point, even though Canada's Wonderland's known for their flat rides. I just think that the scope of how far apart the footers are, and where they're located, I think we're thinking roller coaster at this point, right?
They certainly look like it. Yeah.
And Yukon Striker was their last coaster. And you're like, well, that was only a few years ago. True. But remember, Canada's Wonderland is one of the most profitable parks in the chain for all of Cedar Fair. Has the biggest attendance, brings in a ton of money. And I have always argued that I've felt that they're, for having as many roller coasters as they do at Canada's Wonderland, um, the number of quality roller coasters really isn't that high when you think about Leviathan's a solid ride, Behemoth is a solid ride. And then once you fall off of those two, I have not been on Yukon Striker yet. I haven't been up there in probably about 10 years or so. They have a lot of good supporting coasters, but no real big coasters, especially in the last decade or so, besides Yukon Striker. So adding another coaster, maybe. Do they have a launch coaster at all?
The only one they really have is the stunt track. I
No.
bought the Italian job. I know that's wrong,
Yeah.
but yeah, that one. So they really don't have a modern one, and that one's like okay for everybody, but it's not really good for everybody. Like it wouldn't make me want to ride it, but
No,
maybe.
unless you're collecting credits. Stunt coaster is a fine ride. It's a ride that you need inside of an overall collection to fill out the overall collection. But no one's ranking it anywhere in their top 100 or whatever. So I'm thinking a launched roller coaster, something that's lacking in their collection. I think a serious launched roller coaster. But what makes it more interesting is these teasers kind of push us to two things, right?
Well, I mean, they're going with these elements, but they're sticking with two elements. And like we've seen fire and ice be used in the past to have twin coasters. Maybe it just makes us want to jump there because I'm seeing that. But like right away when I saw these teasers, I was like, I wonder if they're making something like West Coast Racers, where whether it's two separate tracks or like a Mobius, where you get that dueling element, that this is going to be something um, where it's a pair.
Yeah, and West Coast Racers, I once again have not been out to California yet since that's been built. That's already been that was opened, in 2020. A lot of people like that ride. I don't think there's a lot of people that are like raving
Cool.
about that ride,
Yeah,
right?
I don't think it's meant to be you know, topping off their lineup. I mean, they do have a couple of really strong coasters there, but like it looks cool. Like I would want to ride it the next time I go. I haven't been there in a while yet either.
And one of the things that they talk about is how it does duel and how you get that dueling aspect to it. And I don't know, it's a Mobius, so it kind of has to duel. It forces you to almost duel
Yeah.
versus like a Twisted Colossus where you can really run the two sides independently, based on the load cycles and what's happening in the station. So you don't really get a duel every single time. But being that this is a Mobius coaster, you're kind of like forced into that duel, and you have that fire versus ice here. You also have a nice big plot of land where I think their Togo stand up used to be, in between where Yukon Striker and Vortex is. There's a huge field out there, that you could maybe start something by the mountain because that's where we've seen a lot of this. They put up doors by on the mountain itself that have these symbols on them. So maybe that's where the station's going to be. And then you
Yeah.
enter the mountain, and then you go through this big lore. And they've done a lot with that mountain, trying to tell a story with Wonder Mountain's Guardian. Trying to add in some characters. So maybe we're adding to that same storyline now, where we had a dragon, I believe. It's been a while since I've been on Wonder Woman's Guardian. I'm pretty sure it's a dragon,
Yeah.
right?
And dragons are often used with both fire and ice, or fire and water as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, we've seen that before somewhere. I recall seeing that somewhere. I got some dragons back there that are currently in the Thrilling 32 Hall of Fame, that were fire and ice dragons. So maybe we need to fill that gap here of fire and ice dragons. I don't think we're getting an invert though. A wing coaster?
I
No?
don't know. I mean, in my mind, I'm like I'm stuck on West Coast Racers, and it's making it hard to kind of think out from there. I don't think it's a B&M though, because the footers are round, and typically B&M coasters have square footers or rectangular
True,
footers.
true. So,
So I think it's
um,
got to be somebody else.
has the chain worked with Premiere? And I'm sorry, my mind's lost. Have they worked with Premiere lately? I feel like they
No, who? I can't think of anything really. I
have.
mean, since like Flight of Fears and stuff like that, like that's been a long time. It's really a different chain.
Yeah,
It's a different chain again.
yeah. Well, Backlot was Premiere. Flight of Fear was Premiere. Since Paramount, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, Paramount did, but not them. Yeah,
Um, yeah, well, and Busch Gardens has worked with Premiere with Tempesto and Tigris.
that's
Maybe that's
true.
what I'm thinking of. So,
So I mean, like even if Canada's Wonderland hasn't, or Six Flags Cedar Fair, whoever's making the decisions at the moment, um, they still see what other people are doing, and that might make it an appealing option for them.
um, I'm just gonna look up something.
I mean, Canada's Wonderland might be looking at Magic Mountain. They're far apart. There's not a good crossover there. So they might be looking at them and saying, like, we really like that idea.
Because it might also not be a racing coaster. It could very well be one coaster, and you have one train themed to fire, one train themed to ice. So that could be the backup there.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, but do they go with Zamperla?
I
Like
mean,
they now have the lightning train.
obvious.
Uh,
Obviously, they do
they,
launch coasters.
they do launch coasters. I don't know how successfully they do them, but they do have a launch system that
And
theoretically
they do
works.
they do round they do round footers.
Yeah, they do round footers. So I don't know, like, is that because we know these parks like to sign multi-park deals and stuff. So when you look at this stuff, and I know they just work with B&M with Iron Menace, so B&M, but like you said, the footers don't match up. But
Yeah, I mean,
Zamperla is real interesting to me because they're trying to get in this game, and do they build a ride with a top hat on? Did
no.
they? That's no.
There's also I mean, like Intamin's got the hot go, whatever those like
Yeah,
single, whatever you want to call them. Uh, they could easily build dueling versions of that, and that's a kind of a lower ride
yeah.
that might fit inside of something where it goes inside and outside as well.
Like,
Um,
and they have worked with Mac too, with Copperhead Strike, and I don't know, Mac coasters are so expensive too. Like, and I don't know what you'd get here. Um, I would put my money on Premier or maybe Zamperla, and I think that might irritate some people, to be honest with you. Um, but I see Cedar Fair working a lot with Zamperla over the next few years. I really do. Yeah, they kind of threw him under the bus with the dragster thing, but I don't know if they did throw him under the bus because if you go back, and I haven't talked about this, so I guess I'll talk about it now because
sure.
it's been burning me a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, them calling out Zamperla in the initial post is not unusual. Like, Dollywood did the same thing. Dollywood called up RMC
They did.
immediately,
Yeah.
and RMC put out counter statements and all this other stuff. I was there in the park. Um, Devin Olson was filming his lightning rod documentary, and we were there for media day. And Dolly Parton had just done their whole thing, and they did a whole concert. And Dolly was like, "Oh, the ride's not ready yet." And not more than 20 minutes after all that happened, boom, there's a press release out there, and people start going back and forth blaming the other side, and Dollywood blaming RMC and RMC blaming Dollywood, and all this stuff going on. um so this isn't out of the realm. Like, this isn't unusual, as I would say. And a ride like Dragster being down, or Top Thrill 2 being down, is also not unusual because we also saw it with Dragster. So I personally don't think there's any hard feelings with Zamperla. They got Wild Mouse fixed. Like, Wild Mouse had a few issues last year at the beginning of the season. They got that fixed. Top Thrill 2, I'm assuming it's going to be fixed before the end of the year. I think we're going to see it launching. I don't know if we're going to have people on it before the end of the year. I think it's going to be fixed by the end of the year. I do think that.
Yeah, I think for Zamperla, it's just they just need to let it go anyway, and take that on because like you and I, we're Cedar Point's customers. Like that's who they're making the statement to.
Yeah.
We're not Zamperla's customers. Like I kind of feel
No.
like that just goes with it. And RMC the same thing. Like they probably shouldn't have. Well, they kind of did the same thing. They just blamed another one of their vendors, but
Exactly.
which as it turned out probably wasn't the issue. But like they if you're the manufacturer, you just kind of have to like go into the unknown and take it.
And let me say, being one of the few thousand people that have actually ridden Top Thrill 2, the trains were fantastic. The trains were fantastic. They were far better than even the Intamin trains, like on Pantheon and stuff. Because like Pantheon, like, really stapled me. And I know it's Busch Gardens Williamsburg. But even on other stuff, even Velocicoaster was a lot better than Pantheon. But I would say that the Zamperla trains were equal to, if not better, than the Intamin trains that everyone has been raving about all over the world. So the Lightning trains to me are a superior ride. It was super smooth. Um, so to get more Zamperla rides, I don't think is a bad thing. That if they actually, they have models on their website right now that you can, that we've already talked about. Because we've talked about how maybe they could be redoing parts of Cedar Point, maybe Millennium Island getting a redo with a new midway with some Zamperla stuff. But I would not rule out Zamperla building this Wonder Mountains Guardian. I would love to see who's doing it. And like you said, they haven't worked with Premier lately. So doing a West Coast Racers to me seems a little bit out of the realm of possibility. I don't know.
I always kind of got the impression that that the GMs and in the Cedar Fair chain were a little bit more autonomous in being able to make their choices, where maybe they could benefit from a deal like where, hey, we're all getting wind seekers or we're all
Yeah.
getting, whatever, the same kind of flat ride where we purchased five of them, who wants it kind of thing. But as far as the other stuff, you don't see that same synergy. You kind of see them kind of doing their own thing a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm sure they look at each other for inspiration. I know there was like a rash of GCIs for a while, and now we're on our third dive coaster. Maybe we'll see another one. But
It's
you know,
okay.
when Knott's did it, they went the opposite way. They went for a Gerslauer instead. They did not go with B&M.
Which, and that's another company too that I wish had more coasters out there. I don't think we have enough Gerslauers in this country right now. I personally did not like a lot of their early stuff. I hated those restraints, but ever since they moved to the new trains that you see on Monster and Hang Time, those rides are really fantastic. And you see a whole lot of Gerslauers overseas being talked about in the Thrilling 32 and talked about being as, hey, these are some of the best rides anywhere. So
I've not
they
really been on one that I like yet.
no, you haven't been on Monster though, have you?
No, I haven't. But I've been
And
on the Takabishu clone.
yeah, you didn't like that one? No.
Eh,
Yeah. It's that one looks at Monster's a very different ride. Monster I liked a lot. It's not like a top 10 ride, but it's a top 50 ride for sure.
It was
So
brand new. I felt like this. Is that coming across?
oh man. So I'm excited to see what they do here. There's so many different options. But I feel like that theme is going to be the fire monster, the ice monster. Even in some of the images, we see some sort of monsters inside the rock work too. So it's going to be creature based. It's just a matter of, is it going to be a racing coaster? Because they're talking about two things. We see other parks do it where they have one train chase the other train, that kind of deal.
We could also be like way overthinking it, and the mascot is a two-headed creature of some sort
Oh,
because they
absolutely.
like
And
doing
have a
creatures.
fire
Yeah,
and ice creature. That'd
yeah,
be
they do like doing creatures over there.
if they did a wing coaster, you could do one half of the wing in one color and one half of the wing in the other color and have it split down the middle.
Yeah, you do like loud color schemes.
I do. I
Yeah.
do. A lot. So so we are in the middle of teaser season here, so we're gonna do a whole bunch of videos here for you guys to try and catch you all up on what's going on. But Canada's Wonderland looks like they are getting a new roller coaster, in my
Yeah, and
opinion.
the details should be dropping on August 8th.
Yeah, so we're right, so that's yeah, a few days from
Coming
now.
up, coming up in 2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm of course Andrew Barczyk from Chicago, Illinois.
And I am Jeff Goodman from Long Island, New York, and I would like to build a snowman.
Right, right warriors.